obviously, big story. Iowa State went down to Jonesboro, Arkansas, beat Arkansas State 24-16. A pretty plucky, I mean, straighten out my camera here a second. It's all wonky. There you go. Apparently, my wife decided to lay some dishes on her thing. Uh, um, but this is, this was a game that if you were going to draw up a situation in a lab for Iowa State to lose at a G6, I'm not sure you would have come up with anything more diabolical than the game last Saturday, just in terms of um, the extenuating circumstances, just of everything going into this. So, you know, if you're designing this game for Iowa State to lose, you'd say, okay, you're going to go on the road to a little bit of a difficult location to get to. Obviously had to fly to Memphis, and they stayed in Memphis and then drove up to Jonesboro from Memphis. So you've already got that. We're going to go down to, we're going to go play a G6 that's kind of plucky. They've got a good coach, Butch Jones, good coach. There's a reason he previously coached at like Tennessee and a few other major jobs. And they've got a mobile quarterback that's really experienced. He's been in college forever. He's really mobile. They've got an NFL caliber wide receiver. Also, it's going to be 95 degrees out there, air temperature. So it's going to be about 110, 112 degrees in the field. And we're going to make sure that you're going to do it after you've played four games in 4 weeks. One of them is going to be on a different continent against a rival. And then you're going to come back and play a trap game. And then you're going to play you're going to play your biggest rival, arguably your biggest rival, at home, and then immediately turn around to go play this game. So you're going to play 2 emotionally exhausting games in 3 weeks, 3 physically exhausting games in 3 weeks because of the practice schedule and the opponents and the travel schedule and all that. And you're going to do this heading into a bye week before you get to Big 12 play. Also, you're arguably the best pass catcher on your team this season, Gabe Burkle, he's going to be out. Also, your kicker, he's going to be hurt. You're also going to be missing a couple other key players, and you're just going to have to figure it out. A lot of that, all of those arrows are pointing in the direction of Iowa State losing. And, but it was interesting because the first part of that game, it seemed to me, based on the interviews that Matt Campbell gave on the field, both at halftime, coming out of the game, so coming back to the field from halftime, all that, his demeanor was very much like we're having fun, but we knew this was going to be a tough game, but we're out there, we're gutting it out. He did not give off the air to me of a coach that's worried or nervous, because I feel like a lot of coaches, when you see them do those little sideline interviews, you can usually see a little bit of nervous energy, or you can see where they're getting frustrated, or some of them, they're very obviously frustrated. I never got that impression from Campbell in any of those interviews he did. He was very calm, collected, just kind of like, it was kind of like we knew this was going to be a tough game, and I'm happy with how we're fighting through it type of thing. Which should, in retrospect, should have given us more, it should have given us more comfort than it did, more peace of mind than it did at the time, because we're all panicking, thinking, hey, Iowa State was a 21-point favorite. We should be winning this thing by, a touchdown or two, going in, at least a touchdown, if not, 2.5, 10 points or something like that going into halftime, so that they can run away with this thing as the game goes on. And, the first quarter, you got a lead. It's not like awesome, but you're doing what you can. Basically, you've taken a couple early shots downfield. And which it seemed to me that the early shots were a very clear indicator that they wanted to get down there and put this game away early. They wanted to get out to like a 2-score lead and just play with a big lead the whole game. So that way they didn't really have they could let their foot off the gas just a little bit to try to not consume so much energy and to try to not get in a bad situation. Unfortunately, I really believe that the entire game flipped completely upside down. The whole game plan went to shit, went to hell in a handbasket as soon as the roughing the punter penalty happened. The defense had already done its job. It was getting, it had put Arkansas State in three and out. They weren't doing anything. And all of a sudden, now you give them a first down. And instead of your offense coming out and going driving down the field and trying to get a two-score lead going, your defense is going to have to sit out there a little bit longer than you wanted them to be out there, longer than they wanted to be out there. It's hot as shit. And Arkansas State is not, they're not really moving the ball all that effectively, but they keep converting first downs over and over and over again, just off of Jalen Rayner scrambling out of the pocket and picking up, 5, 10, 12 yards, something like that. Basically just enough for the first down and keep the chains moving, basically. And that's what Arkansas State is really good at. They're pretty good at eating time of possession, basically, and just moving the chains over and over and over again. And yeah, they go on that long 8.5, 9-minute drive, basically, go down, they end up scoring. And it just felt like that put the defense in such a hole, in terms of fatigue and energy levels and even mentality, maybe. It put them in such a deep hole that it felt like the rest of the game they were playing catch up, trying to just get back to neutral instead of being more tired than they should have been or more tired than they were expecting to be, basically. The whole rest of the game they're playing catch up. Fortunately, after that long the first quarter and basically the first 25 minutes of the game, you know, Iowa State's offense is really at the first 29 minutes of the game. Iowa State's offense is like they're moving the ball okay. They're running the ball pretty good, but they're not really sticking with the run, and they're throwing some passes, and Rocco's missing a few throws. Receivers are dropping some passes. But then for what I just out of nowhere with a minute left or whatever it was, they blast downfield. 4 plays, 29 seconds, and go like 80 yards for a touchdown. They hit Xavier Townsend on a nice seam route and keep the ball moving, basically, and truck. And then they hit Dom Overby over the top in the end zone. Not all dissimilar from that Kansas State game. And yeah, so and I think that touchdown drive definitely was like, okay, when they need to turn it on, when they need to, assert physical dominance over Arkansas State, they can do it. That's what that told me. Unfortunately, coming back out of half, Arkansas State gets the ball and they go on another long drive. Now, granted, I don't believe they got a touchdown out of that one. Iowa State was able to bottle that up eventually, but it just they kept having to defend these long drives, and they just kept getting behind over and over and over again. In the stamina game, basically, and it's just you know had you not given up that roughing the punter penalty and had to deal with that 9-minute drive, maybe instead of that defending for 9 minutes there, the offense can put together a 5-minute drive, give the defense a breather, get some more points, and, you're in good shape. So, yeah, that third quarter drive, 14 plays, 50 yards, almost 6 minutes, not the 9 minutes or the 8 minutes of what the one at the end of the second quarter was. But still a really long drive. Fortunately, like eventually they kind of got things under control. The next drive, Iowa State went 3 and out, but then the next drive they got Arkansas State into a 3 and out. Then Iowa State starts driving. They're moving down the field, and they get down into the red zone. And I will chalk this up to another fatigue play, basically another thing that happened because everybody's just exhausted and tired. Is Rocco hits Ben Bramer out on the left side. I don't think it was on an out route or I think it might have been a hitch route even. Catches it, or he tries to catch it. He tries to catch it with his body, basically, instead of getting his hands out and catching it like you're supposed to, like this. Just tries catching it right up against his body. It bounces up, and he kind of like tries to catch it again, and accidentally bats it over his head directly into the hands of an Arkansas State defender behind him. And it's like, Iowa State's only hanging on to a 1 point lead here, a 17-16 lead. And it just feels like I was like, oh, God, they're going to go down. They're going to score and we're all going to have a bad time. And it just, it was so frustrating because Rocco, he was rough early, but was ultimately making lots of good throws that the receivers absolutely had to catch. Chase Soul dropped one. I think Eskelson dropped one. Yeah, Ben Bramer had that one. It would have been nice to have Gabe Burkle out there. I mean, I agree with the decision to not, run him out there and have him potentially turn a very minor injury into a major one. That seems silly. And you have the tight end depth that you should be able to handle it. Tyler Moore did actually a very good job instead um for Gabe Berkeley. Had like 2 catches for like 58 yards or something like that. Had 2 very, very long catches. Really nice, catch and run type deals. So he did a good job in filling in for Burkle. But Ben Bramer's got to catch that. I think 99 times out of 100 he does catch that. I just think the guys were just so they were just so exhausted. I think that's just what they were. That it's just how it was going to go. The next drive, though, Arkansas State drives down once again, and they just keep they, they get down there and they commit. Was it? They basically they score. It gets called back for a penalty. They score again. It gets called back for another penalty. And then they commit another penalty. And it was like 4th and goal, or it was like 3rd and goal from like the 26 or something like that. And then they stopped them. And, from there, Iowa State got the ball back. They were able to go down. Um, Rocco put together a really nice, uh, I'm looking at ESPN's drive. I got to show you this ESPN's drive report, like drive summary is just complete nonsense. Let me look. I want to show you this how bad it is. See if I can get it to come up here. Yeah. So they've got so they go punt, 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 punt. I would say it's got a touchdown, but they did miss the extra point. Then you've got touchdown Arkansas State, and suddenly it jumps up to 25. Then it's touchdown Iowa State, and suddenly it's 25-10 Iowa State. And it goes 25-10 into half. Now it's coming out of half at 17-13. and then Arkansas State gets a field goal and it's 17-16 here. And I don't know, this is a mess. And then Arkansas State gets a touchdown on 18 plays here, but their score doesn't change. So that's kind of wild. It's a disaster. I in my head, I know how this game went, but this ESPN drive summary is just scrambling my brain right now. But long story short, Cooper Alexander did have a couple of nice catches. Well, he also made a kind of a bad freshman mistake too. He caused Rocco to miss the throw, but basically he was supposed to have an option zone, and he went into he basically, instead of sitting in it where he should have, he moved out. As soon as the defender left, it was kind of a weird freshman mistake, but that's something I get caught on tape. But anyways, I think I tweeted out at the end of the 3rd quarter that I said 4th quarter Rocco needs to show his face, like badly needs to show his face. And show his face he did. They drove right down, they just kind of marched down the field. They did it like a little bit faster than I was kind of hoping they were gonna. But he had a little kind of a really nice catch actually to Chase Soul there for a little bit. Carson Brown a nice catch, and then Rocco threw the pass of his damn life to Xavier Townsend, which I want to give a special shout out to Xavier Townsend, who had a really, really great day. Definitely, I would absolutely categorize it as a breakout performance for Xavier Townsend in an Iowa State uniform. He caught a couple really nice deep passes. Did a really, really great job. Let me see. I think I've got the video here. Let me pull this up. I mean, this is an elite ball. So this is kind of small. Let me see. Is there a way I can blow that up? Probably too big. Let me see here. Does this look crazy if I do that? Yeah, it does. I might not be able to do anything with this, but anyways, we're gonna watch it small because that's what I got. I mean, you can see right in the breadbasket. I mean, that's one of the best throws of Rocco Beck's career right there. Nice little three-step drop, sling it, bang. Did it in stride in the breadbasket right over his shoulder. I mean, that's about as good as it gets. That's about as good as a throw gets. I mean, that is a full-on, like, there's not an NFL quarterback is not throwing a better ball than that. That is the ball that Joe Burrow throws or that Pat Mahomes throws or something like that. I mean, that is a high-end NFL quality throw there. And absolutely, I think Michael got it exactly right. As soon as he threw that, big sigh of relief. And from there, it just felt like, okay, they're in control. They're doing something. Rocco's here. Um, Abu Sama had a couple nice runs as well, broke off a couple, broke off one long run. And then actually broke off like an 87-yard touchdown run that got called back. I think that was on the last drive of the game. Yeah. Abu Sama run for no gain. That run for no gain went 87 yards to the house, unfortunately. But they just punched it in. The Iowa State running game was generally pretty successful throughout the day. They were pretty regularly gashing Arkansas State. I think it's one of those in the end, like it didn't feel good. And it just felt like Iowa State was playing behind all the day. But if you really look at these stats, I mean, they outgained them by 80 yards, outrushed them and outpassed them. You know, they outpassed them on fewer attempts, 10.6 yards per attempt versus 6.7. Iowa State's interception was kind of bullshit versus, or fluky, I should say, where Arkansas State's was Trey Bell making an outrageous diving catch down the field. I mean, shout out to him. That was an unbelievable job by them here. And frankly, a nice little breakout performance by Trey Bell as well. But, Iowa State averaging 6 yards a carry on the ground. Statistically, you would look at this and say, okay, Iowa State kind of owned this game. They were much more efficient. Now, the 20 first downs to 20 first downs would be a fairly decent clue that they both had roughly the same total offensive output in general, like as far as points go. But I mean, if you look at the rate stats here, Iowa State is just so much more efficient all the way across the board.